On May 27, Sheriff Adam Porter began to prepare for what would become his first strike against the Novus Ordo Seclorum. What he didn't tell anyone at the Patriots' Council was that he was being paid off and threatened by the Novus Ordo Seclorum, and so was the rest of the police force. Sheriff Porter truly believed in doing the right thing, but he never did anything about the Novus Ordo Seclorum, due to their threats against his daughter, Shannon. Now Shannon was dead, potentially at the hands of the Novus Ordo Seclorum. The night after Shannon's upsetting death, Adam was drowning his sorrow away with a bottle of liquor when he was emailed by Melissa Cooper, a friend of Shannon's. She believed that Alia DuPont was the cause of his daughter's death. Now he had a reason to fight back against the Novus Ordo Seclorum, not just because it was the right thing to do as sheriff of Bencow Falls. Since most of the police force was being paid off, and he couldn't be absolutely sure who was and wasn't being paid and threatened, Adam could only turn to two people, Miles Thomas and Sam Fuqua, two newly inducted members of the police force. Miles had black hair and a thick mustache, and was fairly muscular and skinny at the same time. Sam was a bit bigger and had dirty blonde hair. The two arrived for work at 9 a.m., at which point Adam brought them to a corner of the station and had a private conversation with them. "I need you two to help me with an arrest, but it could be a risky situation, so I need to really know if you two are ready for this," Adam explained. "Why us?" Sam asked. "Are you two being paid off?" Adam whispered. "Just the salary, sir," Miles replied. "Oh, good. There's people in the force being paid off by an organization of potential terrorists, and I need someone who isn't," Adam said. "I'm up to it, sir," Miles complied. "So am I," Sam agreed. "Perfect. I still have others to ask, but we'll be going to the Donna Strip Club at 1 a.m. tomorrow to arrest its CEO," Adam said. Adam would need additional help with executing his plan, so he went to Toby Winter's apartment to ask him. Adam knocked on the door and Toby quickly answered. Hello, Sheriff Porter," Toby said with a confused tone. "May I come inside?" Adam asked. "Sure," Toby said as the two went inside and closed the door. "What's up? You're familiar with Harry Roots, correct?" Adam asked. Toby nodded. "I've done some investigation on my own, and I've found that Harry always works at the Donna Strip from Saturday night to Sunday morning, and it's the perfect opportunity for an assassination," Adam explained. "Assassination? Why not an arrest?" Toby asked. All of a sudden, a thud came from Toby's apartment window. The two glanced over and saw nothing. "It's probably just a bird," Toby figured. Anyways, the NOS is paying off most of my officers, so we are unable to make a formal arrest, but I've gathered two officers who aren't being paid, and they can help us with the illegal arrest, if you will," Adam explained. "And you want my help?" Toby assumed. Adam nodded. "We're executing the plan at 2 a.m., and we need a barrel of Wintonium, if you can get that for us." "Is Barrington aware?" Toby asked. "Yes. He wants you to bring a barrel to City Hall as soon as possible," Adam said. "I also recommend bringing a gun, if you have one." The two said goodbye and Adam went to recruit the very last of his limited options. It was 1:53 a.m. on May 28, and Adam Porter was sitting next to his niece, Juanita, who was the getaway driver of the van they were in. Commissioner Kean, Jake Clark, and Eleanor Malco sat in the second row. The three had agreed to join the mission as long as they didn't have to fight anybody. In the back row sat Miles and Sam, who were carrying a barrel of wintonium that Toby had brought into City Hall at 7:53 p.m., just before he went to sleep. Toby parked a block away from the club, and then walked toward the van. When he saw it, he sprinted across the street and got in the back of the van with the two policemen, Sam and Miles. "You're Toby?" Miles asked. "Yeah," Toby said, rubbing his eyes. "I'm Miles. I just joined the force recently," Miles replied as he and Toby shook hands. "I hear you're a damn good scientist. Here's the plan," Sheriff Porter began to explain. "Toby and Miles are going to go into the club and shoot at the ceiling and attack the security if need be. Tell everyone to leave the building, and look for Harry. He's always at the club from Saturday night into Sunday morning, so he'll be here no matter what. Klein, Jake, Sam, Eleanor, and I will be on the roof dropping wintonium near the entrances and exits, so that Roots can't escape. Miles and Toby will need to stay near the middle of the club until we're done dropping explosives, so that they don't get killed by the explosions. Juanita will be the getaway driver. Any questions?" Nobody had any issues with the plan, so everybody except for Juanita got out of the van. Miles and Toby stood near the entrance, readying their guns. "You ready?" Miles asked Toby. "Yeah," Toby replied. "If the security tries to fire on us, shoot to kill immediately. Don't hesitate," Miles instructed. 3, 2, 1. The two opened the doors and sprinted into the building, guns drawn. What they found wasn't a building full of strippers and sexually deprived losers, but three men pointing guns at their faces. Miles instantly began to aimlessly open fire on the three men. Toby, meanwhile, was caught beneath a wave of déjà vu, as he remembered the last time he encountered Harry Roots at the strip club. Harry Roots happened to be one of the three men, and he tried to strike Toby with his pistol as the other two were firing upon Miles. Toby dodged the attack and crouched, then sprinted at Harry's legs, and now the two were wrestling one another on the floor. Miles dashed away from the entrance and hid around the corner of the club walls as the men missed their shots. After reloading his gun, he peeked around the corner and saw one of the men trying to get Toby off of Harry. For reasons unknown to Miles, they weren't killing Toby. Miles jumped back around the corner and extended his gun around the corner. Not looking at the target, he shot blindly until he heard a scream. The man was shot in the thigh, but wasn't dead yet. He limped over to the reception booth and hid behind it. Meanwhile, Toby was trying to shoot Harry while he was on top of him, but Harry held onto Toby's wrist, trying to steer it away. The third man tried to strike Toby in the back of the head with his pistol, but Toby looked back and kicked the man in the groin before he could do so. Toby tore himself away from Harry and stood over him, about to deliver the killing bullet, until out of the corner of his eye, he saw a man with a sniper rifle hiding behind a stripper pole and aiming straight at Miles. Toby sprinted back and tackled Miles onto the ground, and the man fired. The two were safe, but it was still far from over. Toby stood up and pointed his gun at the sniper. He aimed and pulled the trigger. The bullet landed in the man's head, killing him. Harry had already sprinted and hid behind the reception booth along with the other man, while the third was still laying on the ground and in pain from the kick to the groin. Miles put him out of his misery, and now there were just 2 left. Suddenly, a barrel of wintonium dropped onto the center stage, and was shot, creating an explosion. It completely decimated the center of the club and gave Toby and Miles a ringing sensation in their ears. "Backup! We need backup now, you stupid whore!" Harry shouted into a phone from behind the reception desk. "What do we do?" Toby asked Miles. "We wait for the others. An attack with just the 2 of us could be too risky," Miles said. Toby checked to make sure that a Ziploc bag of wintonium he had put in his pocket was still there, trying to think of a plan. Meanwhile, after Eleanor, Malco and Klein had dropped a barrel of wintonium into the club, while Adam shot it, they then started to make their way down the roof. Sam and Adam went first, but Jake, Eleanor, and Klein were still on the rooftop. "How the hell did they know we were coming?" Klein asked. "Here's how," Jake said as he pulled a gun out of his waistband and shot Klein right between the eyes. "Oh my God," Eleanor shouted in terror. "Miss Malco, if you do what I say, perhaps I won't kill you," Jake ordered. She put her hands up and Jake pressed the gun to her back and led her to the ladder which led down to the sidewalk. "Is everything okay up there?" Adam shouted. "I accidentally shot my gun. We're coming down," Jake replied with a shout. "Climb down, and if you do anything stupid, I'll kill you and all of the other patriots," Jake whispered. Eleanor reluctantly climbed down the ladder, trembling in immense fear. Meanwhile, Sam, Adam, Miles, and Toby slowly crept towards the reception booth. Harry Roots quickly popped up and took a quick shot. He barely missed Sam's shoulder. "See you in hell, Turner," Harry said as he shot his henchman in the head. Harry grabbed the man's dead body and stood up, shielding himself with it as he opened fire on the 4. He missed, but he managed to sprint to safety, hiding behind a chair and a table. The 4 were about to advance on Harry, but Jake and Eleanor appeared behind them, and Jake had a gun to her head. "Move, and she dies," Jake shouted. The 4 were clueless as to what to do, until Jake was suddenly shot in the shoulder from afar. Toby looked back and saw Bloodshot standing next to a pawnshop across the street. Jake ran behind the van, and Miles signaled for him and Toby to keep going after Harry, while Sam and Adam could attack Jake. "Who was that?" Miles whispered to Toby. "An anarchist," Toby replied. Bloodshot calmly walked across the street as Toby and Miles shot the chair. The bullets pierced the leather and wood, and they thought Harry was dead, but when they checked, all they saw was the dead body of Harry's henchman. Bloodshot walked through the door, and Toby whispered, "Split up and look for Harry." The 3 split up and walked around the strip club, searching for Harry. Meanwhile, Jake Clark opened the back door of the van and got in, unaware that Juanita was hiding on the floor of the driver's seat. He clutched his shoulder with his good arm and shakily held his gun with the other. He crawled into the front seat, and Juanita rose and wrestled him for his gun. She was overpowered by his size, his shoulder was weak. Jake moved his foot to the door handle and opened it. He gave Juanita a big push, and she fell out of the car. Jake closed the door and grabbed the car keys off of top of the dashboard and started the car. "He's in the van," Adam shouted to Sam. The van took off, and the 2 policemen shot the tires, stopping the van in the middle of an intersection. A police car rammed into the van, making it roll into the pawn shop. 4 policemen got out of the car, all wielding shotguns. They ignored the crash and walked over to the club, aiming their guns at Sam and Adam. "Sam Fuckwad and Adam Porter, you are under arrest," one of the men said as the two dropped their guns and put their hands up. "You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of." The man was interrupted by a gunshot to the chest, administered by Toby. The three remaining officers shot at Toby, but he jumped back into the club. Sam took the opportunity to grab his gun and shoot an officer in the leg, while Adam tackled another onto the ground. Sam shot the third, but couldn't shoot the fourth one, whom Adam was wrestling. Toby rushed out to the sidewalk and aimed his gun at the policeman. "Let me shoot him," Toby shouted at Adam. Sam and Toby were trying to get a clear shot, but the two were moving too much. Toby moved in to hit the policeman in the head with his gun, but the man Sam shot in the chest was still alive due to his bulletproof vest and punched Toby in the back, causing him to land on Adam. Bloodshot came outside and landed a perfect shot on both of the police. The fight was over, and all they had to do was find Harry. "Go back in the club," Adam commanded, almost out of breath. "Hold on, where's Eleanor?" Toby asked. The group looked around, but there was no sign of Eleanor. "She probably just ran away. We can look for her after we kill Roots," Sam decided. The rest agreed and hurried into the club, where they saw Miles carefully searching with his phone's flashlight. "Did he go out the entrance?" Toby yelled to Miles. "No, he's still here," Miles yelled back. Now with the 5 men searching, their odds of finding Harry increased, and now they had a chance to rest. Toby and Bloodshot searched together, with Bloodshot trying to get away from Toby. "How did you know we were here?" Toby asked. Bloodshot. "Shush," Bloodshot whispered. They checked underneath tables, on stages, until they got too far away from the entrance, and they heard footsteps loudly go through the club and disappear out the entrance. "Go," Adam shouted. They all sprinted out of the club, and saw Harry get in the back of a police car. Everyone started shooting, except for Toby, who sprinted straight at the car and got on the top of it, as it started speeding down the street. The driver saw Toby in the rear-view mirror and instructed Harry to start firing into the roof, and he did. Toby wasn't hit by the first bullet, so he immediately moved further back to dodge the rest. Toby fired back by breaking Harry's car door window with the handle of his gun, and then, since his other hand was busy gripping the car, he reloaded the gun with his lips and blindly fired into the car until the car slowed down and steered into a jewelry store. Toby got off of the car and tried to reload his gun. He looked into the car and saw Harry Roots. He pointed his gun at Harry and, click click, the gun was empty. In frustration, Toby threw the gun at Harry, hitting him straight in the chest. "Help! Help!" Harry Roots shouted to the last living policeman in the car. "Hold on," the policeman replied. Toby ran into the jewelry store and kicked the glass barrier between himself and expensive rings and necklaces. He started gathering every ring he could find and put them all on. "Give me your gun," Harry ordered the policeman. "No. I'll kill him myself," he insisted. Harry grabbed a walkie-talkie from the dead police officer, who was sitting next to him, and jammed it into the officer's face, stabbing him in the eyes with it. He quickly strangled him to death and stole his gun. Harry climbed out of the car and slowly entered the jewelry store. At first he couldn't see Toby, until he was punched right in the jaw. It was the most painful punch he'd ever felt, and it felt like his jaw had been broken 5 times over. When he punched, Toby wore 8 rings on his fingers, with 2 rings on each finger. Toby went in for another punch, but he noticed that the car was on fire. He looked at the car for a moment, and then suddenly, it exploded. Toby was launched back into a display of bracelets, and Harry was slid across the floor. Harry was very disoriented from his broken jaw, so when he picked his gun back up and aimed at Toby, he missed all of his shots. Toby punched the store's window and ran away from Harry's belligerent firing. Just when Toby thought it couldn't get any worse, 3 cop cars drove to the jewelry store to assist Harry Roots, who quickly limped into one of the cars and was driven away. Toby felt the clay-like feeling of the bag of wintonium in his pocket. He felt the burning desire to survive deep in his chest. He sprinted over to a gun which was laying on the ground next to the blown-up car. He felt like he was running in slow motion. The threat of a bullet entering his skull was almost imminent. After what felt like an eternity of hell, Toby felt the heavy handgun in his hands. When Toby pulled the wintonium out of his pocket, he felt a bullet pierce his thigh, knocking him to the ground. He didn't feel any pain whatsoever, he just kept pushing through. He got back up and threw the bag into the air, and it seemed to levitate in between the 2 cop cars, until Toby finally aimed the gun at the newfound substance, and bang! The explosion was much bigger than the test explosions Toby had run, perhaps due to Toby's sweat accumulating onto the bag. The policemen in the cars were killed almost instantly. Toby knew he'd made it, and he gave a final smirk before he fainted. Meanwhile, Adam, Sam, Miles, Juanita, and Bloodshot investigated Jake Clark's car crash. Inside the van they didn't find anyone. Jake was gone. "I'm going after Toby," Bloodshot announced, as he ran off and hotwired a Jeep and drove around, looking for Toby. After a few minutes, Bloodshot found Toby lying next to a jewelry store just a few moments after he killed the policemen. Bloodshot carried Toby into his car and drove to a hospital in Fero, where he dropped Toby off and drove away without talking to the hospital. A full 27 hours later, Toby awoke in a hospital bed while a doctor was checking on him. His gunshot wound had been stitched up, and Toby felt decent, although he needed food and water badly. "How are you feeling, sir?" the doctor asked Toby. Toby began, before 2 police officers entered the room. Toby's heart sunk into his stomach. "Maybe they just want to ask what happened," Toby reassured himself. "We need to ask this young man a few questions. Is it okay if you leave the room for a moment?" The first officer asked the doctor. "Yeah, make it quick, though," the doctor ordered as he exited the room. The police stood still for a moment, and then the first officer pulled out a silencer pistol and pointed it at Toby. "No!" Toby screamed as he tore out of the bed and ran the policeman into the wall. Head first, the sheer force of his head destroying some of the man's internal organs. He quickly grabbed the pistol and shot the second officer before he could even take out his gun. Toby anxiously fumbled through both of the policeman's pockets, before he finally found a set of car keys. Still in his hospital gown, Toby exited the room, raising his gun and scanning the hospital for more police. He aimed it at several doctors as a threat, until he finally made it out of the hospital safe. He found the police car and got in. Now all he had to do was contact Barrington and flee the country with his help. Toby started the car, and he heard a calm and scared, "Hello," come from the barred-off jail in the back of the car. Toby looked into the back of the car. It was Gus Blue.